Today, we're diving into some of the absolute wildest boss fights you can experience on Nintendo Switch. I'm talking about the kind of fights that get your palms sweaty, where you're down to your last bit of health and somehow pull off that final hit. These are the games that'll test your skills, your patience, and sometimes even your sanity in the best way possible. So, let's jump right into it. Hollow Knight delivers some of the most unforgettable boss fights on the Switch, and the variety is what makes it so special. The chaotic early clash with Gru's mother teaches you to stay calm in tight spaces, while the False Knight's heavy telegraphed swings feel like your first true test of skill. Later, the Sisters of Battle crank up the speed and precision, forcing you to read patterns and react in split seconds. And then there's the Hollow Knight himself, a duel that feels like the perfect finale, equal parts intense and tragic. Every fight is beautifully animated, perfectly scored, and designed to push you just enough to keep you coming back after every defeat. You'll fail, you'll retry, and eventually, you'll pull off that win, feeling like you truly earned it. Hollow Knight doesn't just give you bosses to beat, it gives you battles to remember. No More Heroes 3 turns every major fight into a wild, unpredictable spectacle. You're never quite sure what's coming next. One moment you're locked in a fast-paced sword duel, the next you're dodging massive area attacks while the battlefield transforms around you. The game thrives on style and surprise, keeping you constantly on your toes with sudden shifts in pacing and mechanics. Combat is flashy but also demands focus, rewarding quick reactions and creative use of your abilities. The over-the-top presentation, quirky humor, and sheer absurdity make each fight as entertaining to watch as it is to play. Win or lose, you walk away remembering the spectacle, the chaos, and the feeling that anything could have happened at any second. It's unpredictable, it's stylish, and it keeps you hooked from the first strike to the final blow. Dark Souls Remastered brings its legendary boss fights to the Switch, and even years later they still hit hard. Every encounter feels like an event, from the towering presence of the Bell Gargoyles to the eerie calm before the chaos of Ornstein and Smough. These fights aren't just about quick reflexes, they're about reading your enemy, finding openings, and making every swing count. The game's slower, methodical pace means that one mistake can cost you everything, so every dodge and block feels high stakes. The atmosphere is unmatched. Haunting music, oppressive environments, and the sheer intimidation of these bosses make victory feel monumental. Whether it's the crushing weight of a giant weapon slamming into the ground inches from you or that final blow that drops a seemingly impossible foe, each win in Dark Souls feels earned in a way few games can match. Bayonetta 3 is pure spectacle when it comes to boss fights, turning every encounter into an over-the-top cinematic brawl. One minute you're facing a skyscraper-sized demon in the middle of a collapsing city, the next you're summoning massive creatures to clash with equally monstrous foes. The scale is ridiculous in the best way possible. Fights are fast, chaotic, and constantly evolving with new phases and set pieces. Bayonetta's fluid combat system lets you weave together melee combos, gunplay, and special summons, making every boss battle feel like you're choreographing your own action movie. The creativity here is off the charts, with bosses that defy expectations and push the game's visuals and mechanics to their limits. By the time you land the finishing blow, you don't just feel like you won a fight, you feel like you just survived an explosive, jaw-dropping event that only Bayonetta could deliver. Monster Hunter Rise turns every major hunt into a tense, high-stakes showdown. These battles aren't just about landing big hits, they're about learning your opponent's movements, finding the right moment to strike, and knowing when to back off. The game's mobility system keeps the pace fast and fluid, letting you zip across the battlefield, scale walls, and pull off flashy aerial attacks. Every fight is a dance of patience and precision, where the smallest mistake can send you scrambling to recover. The tension builds as the battle drags on, each exchange bringing you closer to that decisive moment. When victory finally comes, it feels like the perfect payoff for your preparation and persistence, delivering that signature rush the series is known for. On Switch, it's just as intense whether you're going it alone or teaming up with friends.
Doing great! All done!
Metroid Dread thrives on keeping you under constant pressure, and its boss fights are the purest expression of that tension. Each battle demands sharp reflexes, quick reads on attack patterns, and precise execution. The pacing is relentless. You're constantly switching between dodging, countering, and looking for that perfect opening to unleash damage. Every encounter feels like a test of both your combat skills and your ability to stay calm when the screen is filled with danger. The game's smooth animations and tight controls make these fights feel incredibly responsive, rewarding you instantly for smart plays. And just when you think you've figured things out, a sudden shift in the battle forces you to adapt on the fly. By the time the dust settles, win or lose, your pulse is racing, and you're already itching to jump back in for another round. Blasphemous 2 delivers boss fights that feel like grim works of art, blending intense combat with haunting atmospheric design. Each encounter pushes you to read every animation carefully, punishing hesitation and rewarding precise timing. The battles are methodical yet brutal, with attacks that can wipe you out in seconds if you lose focus. The game's dark, oppressive world seeps into every fight, making victories feel not just like a test of skill, but a small act of defiance against overwhelming odds. The music swells, the screen shakes, and every clash feels personal, like a duel between two forces that refuse to yield. These aren't just quick skirmishes, they're trials of endurance and concentration, where every dodge, parry, and strike matters. When it's over, you're left catching your breath, staring at the screen, and feeling the weight of what you just overcame. Cuphead is basically one giant love letter to boss fights. From the moment you start, every level feels like a showdown against some wild, over-the-top opponent, each with multiple phases and completely different attack patterns. The animations are gorgeous, inspired by 1930s cartoons, but don't let the charming visuals fool you. These fights are brutal. 1 second, you're dodging candy projectiles from a crazed queen in a sugar kingdom. The next, you're weaving between bullets in a dogfight against a massive airborne menace. Every boss pushes you to learn, adapt, and execute perfectly, with no room for mistakes. The satisfaction comes from that razor-thin margin between failure and victory, where one well-timed dodge or perfect shot can turn the tide. Cuphead doesn't just test your reflexes, it demands total focus, and when you win, it's a pure rush of relief and triumph. Tears of the Kingdom takes boss encounters and turns them into full-blown adventures. These battles aren't just about swinging a sword. They often mix exploration, puzzle solving, and clever use of the game's physics systems to gain the upper hand. Every fight feels like a unique event, with arenas that change and evolve as the battle goes on, forcing you to adapt your approach. Sometimes it's about finding that hidden weak point. Other times it's about surviving long enough to land a decisive strike. The sense of scale is incredible, and the creativity in how you can tackle each encounter keeps them feeling fresh. When you finally deliver that finishing blow, it's not just a victory. It's the satisfying conclusion to a multi-layered challenge that tested more than just your combat skills. It's the kind of payoff that stays with you long after you've moved on. Astral Chain blends fast-paced combat with cinematic flair, and its boss fights are where everything comes together. Each encounter feels like a carefully choreographed dance, switching between melee combos, ranged attacks, and commanding your legion to set up devastating follow-ups. The variety is impressive. Some fights keep you grounded in close quarters, while others push the action into large, dynamic arenas where positioning becomes just as important as timing. The game constantly finds ways to surprise you, introducing new mechanics mid-battle that force you to adapt without breaking the flow. Visually, it's stunning, with flashy effects and smooth animations making every hit feel impactful. These battles demand precision and awareness, but they also reward creativity, letting you approach them in different ways. By the end, you're left with that perfect mix of adrenaline and satisfaction that makes a great boss fight truly unforgettable. So, that wraps up our look at some of the craziest and most unforgettable boss fights you can take on with your Switch. Some will push you to your limits, others will completely surprise you with their creativity, but all of them deliver that rush we're all chasing. If you've got your own personal favorites that didn't make the cut, let us know. We're always up for adding more challenges to the list. Thanks for hanging out with us, and until next time, keep your skills sharp and be ready for the next big fight.